Welcome back to Grave Hush, where darkness meets reality. Before we dive into tonight's nightmare, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling us which Halloween horror scenario terrifies you most. Tonight we're bringing you 4 bone-chilling Halloween horror stories that prove the real monsters don't need costumes to terrorize you. From babysitters trapped with home invaders to office parties that turn deadly, these tales will make you question everyone around you this Halloween. Our first story comes from Emma Rodriguez, an 18-year-old whose desperate need for college money led her to accept a babysitting job that nearly cost her everything. Because sometimes the people knocking on your door aren't looking for candy. They're looking for something much more valuable. Let's begin. October 31st, 2023 started as the worst day of my senior year. I'm Emma Rodriguez. I was 18 then, and I'd just found out my financial aid application was rejected due to a paperwork error. With college starting in 8 months, I was desperate for any job that paid decent money. That's when Mrs. Henderson called. I'd babysit for them twice before. Easy kids, good pay, nice house in Millbrook Heights where nothing bad ever happened. She sounded stressed on the phone. "Emma, I know it's last minute, but our regular sitter just canceled. We have this charity gala tonight, and I can't miss it. Could you watch Sophie and Jake? I'll pay double your usual rate." Double rate on Halloween night meant $200 for maybe 6 hours of work. I said yes immediately. The Henderson house sat at the end of Maple Court, one of those modern colonials with a 3-car garage and professionally landscaped yard. Sophie and Jake, the 7-year-old twins, were already in their costumes when I arrived at 6 p.m. She was a witch. He was a superhero I didn't recognize. Mr. and Mrs. Henderson looked incredible in their matching vampire costumes, clearly expensive rentals from somewhere downtown. "We should be home by midnight," Mrs. Henderson said, checking her lipstick in the hallway mirror. "The kids can stay up until 9:30 since it's Halloween. Pizza money is on the counter, and there's a bowl of candy for trick-or-treaters by the front door." After they left, the first few hours were perfect. We ordered pizza, watched Hocus Pocus, and I helped the twins sort through their trick-or-treat haul from earlier in the day. The doorbell rang regularly with costumed kids, and I handed out candy while Sophie and Jake critiqued each costume. Around 8:30, I noticed a dark blue sedan parked across the street. Not unusual in a neighborhood where people had dinner parties and overnight guests, except this car had been sitting there for over an hour with the engine running. At 9:15, while I was getting the twins ready for bed, Sophie pointed out her bedroom window. "Emma, why is that car still there? And why are those people just standing around?" I looked outside and saw 3 adults standing on the sidewalk near the car, all wearing elaborate horror movie masks. Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, and what looked like a custom zombie mask. They weren't moving, just standing there facing the Henderson house. "Probably teenagers getting ready for a party," I told Sophie. But something felt wrong about their stillness, their focus on this specific house. After I got both kids settled in their rooms, I watched from the living room window. The 3 masked figures had moved closer, now standing at the edge of the Hendersons' driveway. Still not moving, still facing the house. At 9:47 p.m., the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw the same 3 masks from the sidewalk. Up close, their costumes looked expensive, professional quality. Not the cheap stuff teenagers wore to house parties. "Trick or treat," said a man's voice, muffled by the Michael Myers mask. "Sorry, we're all out of candy," I called through the door, though the bowl on the counter was still half full. Something about their presence made me want them gone immediately. "We saw lights on," said a woman's voice from behind the Jason mask. "And we know someone's home." That phrase sent ice through my veins. Normal trick-or-treaters would have just left. These people were stating facts like they'd been watching the house. The kids are asleep and I don't have any more candy, I said, trying to sound firm but polite. There was silence for maybe 10 seconds. Then the zombie mask spoke. Emma, we know you're the babysitter. We know Mr. and Mrs. Henderson are at the Marriott downtown for the Children's Hospital Gala. We know Sophie and Jake are upstairs in their beds. My blood froze. They knew my name. They knew where the parents were, specifically which event and which hotel. They knew the kids' names and where their bedrooms were located. I stepped away from the door and immediately called 911, whispering my address and situation. The dispatcher said units were en route, but it would be 8 to 10 minutes. Through the window, I watched the three figures spread out around the house. Michael Myers walked around to the backyard. Jason headed toward the side with the kitchen windows. The zombies stayed at the front door. They weren't random Halloween pranksters. This was planned, coordinated, professional. The doorbell rang again, followed by heavy knocking. Emma, we just want to talk, the zombie called out. Open the door and no one gets hurt. I ran upstairs and woke both kids, my hands shaking as I helped them into the master bedroom. We're playing a game, I whispered. We have to hide really quietly until the police come. Are those bad people? Jake asked, his superhero costume rumpled from sleep. Before I could answer, I heard glass breaking downstairs. They were inside. I locked the master bedroom door and pushed the heavy dresser in front of it while both kids huddled on the bed. Through my phone, the 911 dispatcher could hear everything happening. Police are 4 minutes away, she whispered. Stay hidden and stay quiet. Heavy footsteps moved through the house below us. I could hear them opening doors, searching rooms systematically. They knew the layout. Master bedroom upstairs, kids' rooms down the hall, guest bathroom between them. Emma, Michael Myers called from the bottom of the stairs. We know you're up there with Sophie and Jake. This doesn't have to be complicated. The footsteps started coming up the stairs, slow, deliberate, confident. We're not here to hurt anyone, the zombie added. We just need you to cooperate. They stopped outside the master bedroom door and tried the handle. When it didn't turn, someone kicked it hard. The door held, but I could see it wouldn't last long. That's when I heard the most beautiful sound of my life. Sirens getting closer. The kicking stopped immediately. I heard rapid footsteps running back down the stairs, then the sound of the back door slamming open. 3 police cars arrived within seconds of each other, their lights flooding the house with red and blue strobes. Officers found the broken kitchen window and muddy footprints throughout the downstairs, but no sign of the intruders. When Mr. and Mrs. Henderson got home 20 minutes later, Mrs. Henderson broke down crying when she saw the broken glass and realized how close we'd come to something terrible. The police investigation revealed that the 3 intruders had been watching the house for at least a week. Neighbors reported seeing the same dark sedan parked on different streets in the area, always with a clear view of the Henderson house. They'd somehow obtained detailed information about the family's Halloween plans, my personal information, and the house's layout. The detective suspected someone with access to the family's digital communications, their email, social media, or even household staff, had provided intelligence for the break-in. This wasn't random, Detective Morrison told us. Someone wanted access to this specific house on this specific night, and they knew exactly when the parents would be gone and who would be here instead. We never found out who they were or what they wanted. The Hendersons installed a complete security system the next week and never left the kids with a babysitter again. I stopped babysitting after that night. Every time someone rang a doorbell while I was watching kids, I'd remember those masks, those voices calling my name, the sound of glass breaking downstairs. But the thing that still haunts me most wasn't the break-in itself. It was how much they knew about us, how carefully they'd planned everything, and the realization that we were never really safe in the first place. Halloween is supposed to be about pretend monsters and fake scares. But sometimes the real monsters are the ones who don't need costumes to terrify you. They just need your name, your schedule, and the knowledge that you're alone with children who trust you to protect them. I still wonder what would have happened if those police sirens had arrived 5 minutes later. Some questions are better left unanswered. Story 2. The Office Halloween Party. October 31st, 2022 was supposed to be my breakthrough night. I'm Marcus Chen, 26, working as a marketing coordinator at TechFlow Solutions downtown, and I'd been planning to ask out Jenna from accounting at our Halloween party for weeks. The party started normal enough. About 40 employees showed up in costumes ranging from lazy vampire teeth to elaborate zombie makeup. I went as a detective. Cheap suit, fake badge, figured it was professional enough if any executives showed up. Jenna looked incredible as a 1950s pinup girl, and we actually hit it off immediately, laughing over the terrible DJ and criticizing our co-workers' costume choices. Everything was perfect until around 9:30 p.m. That's when I noticed David from IT acting strange. David was usually this quiet, awkward guy who ate lunch alone and barely spoke in meetings. But tonight he was moving through the crowd with this confident energy I'd never seen, talking to different groups, making jokes that seemed to land perfectly. "He's really coming out of his shell," Jenna said when she noticed him too. But I was watching more carefully. David wasn't just socializing, he was whispering specific things to specific people. After each conversation, whoever he'd talk to would get this weird look on their face, then start acting differently. Sarah from HR, who was normally super professional, suddenly started making loud, inappropriate comments about people's appearances. Mike from sales, usually the office joker, became dead serious and started interrogating people about their work performance. By 10 p.m., the entire mood had shifted. Conversations became aggressive. The costume contest turned into people genuinely insulting each other's appearances. Someone cranked up the music so loud that normal conversation became impossible. That's when the games started. David announced a team-building scavenger hunt with prizes from petty cash. Nothing suspicious about that, except the tasks were designed to humiliate people. Find something embarrassing in your manager's desk. Take a photo of someone crying. Get a coworker to confess their biggest work mistake. People were actually doing these things, laughing as they went through private files and recorded each other's humiliation. I watched Lisa from customer service break down sobbing while 3 people filmed her with their phones. "This is getting out of hand," I told Jenna. But when I turned to her, she was scrolling through someone else's personal emails on their unlocked computer, giggling at what she found. The punch had been spiked with something stronger than alcohol. Whatever David had added was lowering everyone's inhibitions and amplifying their worst impulses. I found him in the break room mixing another batch of punch with a small vial of clear liquid. "What are you putting in there?" I demanded. David turned around and his usual nervous expression was gone. In its place was something cold and calculating. "Just a little social experiment, Marcus. Amazing what people will do when their filters are removed. All those fake office friendships, all that professional courtesy, it's just a thin mask over who they really are. You're drugging people. I'm revealing people. Do you know how many years I've listened to these idiots gossip about me? How many promotions I've been passed over for because I don't play their social games?" Through the break room window, I could see the party had turned completely savage. People were openly going through each other's phones, sharing private messages, creating chaos that would destroy relationships and careers for months. "Someone's going to get seriously hurt," I said. "Someone already has." That's when I noticed blood on David's costume. Fresh blood, still wet. "Where's Tom?" I asked. Tom was our office manager, David's direct supervisor, the guy who'd written David's last performance review. David smiled. Tom had a little accident in the supply closet, slipped and hit his head on the metal shelving. Amazing how clumsy people get when their coordination is compromised. I ran toward the supply closet, but David grabbed my arm with surprising strength. "You know what your problem is, Marcus? You think you're better than everyone else, above all the office politics and drama, but you're just as petty and judgmental as the rest of them." He pulled out a small spray bottle and aimed it at my face. "This will help you relax and join the fun." I knocked the bottle out of his hand and shoved him backward into the refrigerator. The crash was loud enough to get attention from the main party area, but nobody came to investigate. They were too busy destroying each other. In the supply closet, I found Tom unconscious, bleeding from a head wound that looked deliberate rather than accidental. His pulse was weak but steady. I called 911 from Tom's phone, then tried to get people to leave the party. But everyone was too far gone, too caught up in the chaos David had orchestrated. Police and paramedics arrived 15 minutes later to find 40 professionals acting like animals, the office completely trashed, and evidence of corporate espionage, harassment, and assault scattered everywhere. David was gone. Security footage showed him leaving through the parking garage right after I'd confronted him, still wearing his costume, carrying a laptop bag full of stolen files and recorded confessions. The aftermath was brutal. 12 people were fired based on their behavior that night. 3 relationships ended when spouses saw the videos that had been shared on social media. Tom survived but had permanent memory issues from his head injury. The company tried to claim it was a mass food poisoning incident, but the truth came out when police found David's apartment. He'd been planning this for months, collecting dirt on everyone, identifying the perfect combination of drugs to remove inhibitions without causing obvious impairment. His computer contained detailed psychological profiles of every employee, noting their insecurities, their relationships, their secrets. The Halloween party wasn't revenge. It was a carefully planned social destruction project. We never caught him. By the time police got to his apartment, he'd cleaned out his bank account and disappeared. But he'd gotten what he wanted. 40 people's careers and relationships destroyed in one night, all recorded for his personal entertainment. The scariest part wasn't the drugs or the violence. It was realizing how thin the line is between civilization and chaos. How easily someone who understands human psychology can turn colleagues into monsters. I don't go to office parties anymore, and I pay much closer attention to the quiet ones, the people who sit alone at lunch and watch everyone else. Because sometimes they're not just awkward. They're studying us, learning our weaknesses, waiting for the perfect moment to show us who we really are underneath our professional masks. Halloween is supposed to be about pretending to be someone else for one night. David proved that most of us are already wearing costumes every day, and removing them reveals something much scarier than any horror movie monster. Our next story proves that sometimes entire communities can harbor dark secrets, and newcomers who ask too many questions during Halloween might discover traditions that were never meant to be broken. October 31st, 2023 was my family's first Halloween in Shadow Lane, and I thought we'd finally found the perfect neighborhood. I'm Katie Patterson. I was 16 then, and after moving 6 times in 4 years due to my dad's job, I was desperate for somewhere that felt like home. Shadow Lane looked like something from a movie. Identical colonial houses, manicured lawns, and neighbors who actually waved when you walked by. My parents were thrilled. I was cautiously optimistic. Halloween night, I decided to trick-or-treat solo, figuring it was a good way to meet kids my age. At 7 p.m., I grabbed a lazy witch costume and headed out. The first thing I noticed was how perfectly coordinated everything looked. Every house had the same orange porch lights, Identical jack-o'-lanterns with triangle eyes and matching autumn wreaths, like they'd all shopped at the same store. At the first house, Mrs. Chen answered wearing a vintage 1950s housewife costume. She dropped a full-size Snickers bar into my bag from an orange ceramic bowl. "Welcome to the neighborhood, dear. Make sure you visit every house. It's tradition." The second house, Mrs. Rodriguez wore the exact same 1950s costume and gave me the exact same candy from an identical orange bowl, using nearly the same words. By the fifth house, I was keeping track. Same costume styles, same candy, same bowls, same scripted responses. Even their smiles looked rehearsed. Around 8:30, I saw something that made me stop walking. A group of 4 kids was approaching a house I'd already visited. But these were the same 4 kids I'd seen an hour earlier, now wearing completely different costumes. The boy who'd been a pirate was now a vampire. The girl who'd been a princess was now a ghost. I followed them at a distance. They knocked on doors in the exact same sequence I'd used, received the same candy from the same orange bowls, and gave the same polite responses. But they weren't different kids in new costumes. They were the same kids, somehow wearing different faces. At 9 p.m., I tried to leave the main neighborhood loop and explore the side streets my family hadn't driven through yet. But every street I turned down led me back to the same central circle. Even though I was walking straight, I kept ending up at the same intersection. I pulled out my phone to check GPS, but there was no signal. Not unusual in some neighborhoods, except I'd had full bars all week. That's when I noticed the streetlights. Every lamppost had a small bronze plaque reading Shadow Lane Community Association, Estor 1962. But the houses looked much older, and some of the family photos I'd glimpsed through windows showed the same people in identical poses across what should have been decades. At the community center, I found a bulletin board with announcements dating back to 1962. All in the same handwriting, all signed by the same 5 board members with identical signatures. A man's voice behind me said, "You're noticing things." I turned around to see Mr. Peterson from 3 houses down, still wearing his elaborate vampire costume. But his face looked different, older, more tired. "How long have you lived here?" I asked. "Since 1962, same as everyone else." "That's impossible. You'd be like 90 years old." Mr. Peterson smiled sadly. "Katie, what do you think happens to a neighborhood when nobody ever moves away? When the same families celebrate the same holidays in the same ways for 60 years straight?" The other trick-or-treaters were gathering around us now. Kids, teenagers, adults, all still in their costumes, all with that same tired expression I was seeing in Mr. Peterson's eyes. "We've been having the same Halloween for 61 years, said Mrs. Chen, her 1950s costume now looking authentic rather than retro. "Same houses, same decorations, same conversations, same candy. Every October 31st we wake up and do it again," added Mrs. Rodriguez. "The new families who move in, like yours, get one choice. Join the tradition or what? Or become part of the decorations." That's when I noticed what I'd missed before. The jack-o'-lanterns weren't carved pumpkins. They were preserved heads, their features carved into permanent expressions of surprise and terror. The autumn wreaths weren't made of leaves. They were made of hair, braided and woven into decorative patterns, still showing traces of different colors and textures. "Your parents are at home right now," Mr. Peterson said gently. "They've received their welcome basket and their orientation materials. Tomorrow morning they'll wake up with the choice, embrace Shadow Lane's eternal Halloween, or provide materials for next year's decorations." I ran, but every street led back to the community center. Every house I passed had the same orange glow, the same carved faces watching from windows. The same families offering the same candy from the same orange bowls. I wasn't in a neighborhood anymore. I was in a loop, a pocket of Halloween that had never ended, sustained by new residents who either joined willingly or contributed unwillingly to the tradition. My phone rang. My dad's voice, but different, calmer. "Katie, honey, come home. The neighbors brought over the most wonderful casserole, and we've decided we really love it here. We're going to stay forever." "Dad, something's wrong with this place." "Nothing's wrong, sweetheart. Everything's perfect, exactly the way it should be." The call ended. When I tried calling back, the number was disconnected. I found my house at 10:47 p.m. My parents were sitting in the living room with 3 neighbors, all of them smiling the same rehearsed smile, all wearing matching 1950s costumes that definitely hadn't been in our moving boxes. "There you are," my mom said cheerfully. "We were just discussing how wonderful it will be to celebrate Halloween here every year. Forever and ever." On the coffee table were 2 orange ceramic bowls and a stack of vintage costumes in my size. "We know change is hard," Mrs. Peterson said kindly, "but you'll love being part of our community tradition. Everyone does eventually." I backed toward the door, but it was already locked. The windows were sealed shut. Even the walls looked different. Older wallpaper, furniture from decades past, family photos showing us in costumes from every Halloween since 1962. "Don't fight it, dear," my mother said. And for just a moment her smile faltered and I saw terror in her eyes before the expression snapped back to cheerful contentment. That's when I understood. My parents weren't choosing this. They were trapped, just like everyone else, forced to smile and participate while something else controlled their actions. I'm writing this on November 1st, 2023. It's 6 a.m., and I just woke up in my Shadow Lane bedroom wearing a 1950s costume I've never seen before. My parents are downstairs making breakfast, humming songs from 60 years ago, preparing for another perfect day in our perfect neighborhood. In 11 months, it will be Halloween again, and I'll put on my costume, take my orange ceramic bowl, and greet new trick-or-treaters with the same scripted responses everyone else uses. But right now, for these few minutes after waking up, I can still remember what really happened. I can still feel the terror underneath the forced happiness. If you're looking for a new house, avoid developments that seem too perfect. Avoid neighborhoods where everyone is just a little too friendly, where all the decorations match a little too well, where the community traditions feel a little too rehearsed. Because some traditions never end. They just add new participants every year, one family at a time, until everyone is smiling the same smile and celebrating the same eternal Halloween that began decades ago and will continue long after you've forgotten you ever had a choice. The doorbell just rang. Time to put on my smile and hand out candy from my orange ceramic bowl. Welcome to Shadow Lane. Make sure you visit every house. It's tradition. Our final story tonight proves that even a single night of poor judgment can lead to consequences that last far longer than Halloween, especially when attraction and terror become dangerously intertwined. October 31st, 2022 was supposed to be the perfect end to a terrible week. I'm Ashley Morgan. I was 22 then, and I'd just been dumped by my boyfriend of 2 years via text message. My roommate dragged me to this massive Halloween party in downtown Portland to get back out there. The party was packed. Some rich guy's penthouse with a view of the city, expensive decorations, and people who clearly had money to burn on their costumes. I wore a simple black dress with vampire fangs, nothing elaborate. That's when I met Tyler. He was standing alone on the balcony wearing this incredibly detailed vampire costume that looked like it cost more than my rent. Dark hair, pale skin, the kind of smile that made me forget about my recent heartbreak immediately. "Great minds think alike," he said, gesturing at our matching vampire theme. We talked for hours. He was charming, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say. When he suggested leaving the crowded party for somewhere quieter, I said yes without hesitation. His apartment was a 15-minute Uber ride away in one of those converted warehouse buildings with exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows. Everything was perfect. Dim lighting, expensive furniture, wine that probably cost what I made in a week. "I'm glad we left," Tyler said, pouring 2 glasses. "Parties are fun, but I prefer getting to know people one-on-one." The wine was strong, and I was feeling relaxed for the first time in days. Tyler was attentive, asking about my job, my interests, making me feel like the most fascinating person he'd ever met. Around midnight, I excused myself to use his bathroom. That's when I found the jewelry box. It was sitting on the counter filled with earrings, necklaces, and rings in completely different styles. Cheap costume jewelry mixed with expensive pieces like someone had been collecting random items from different women. I opened the medicine cabinet looking for aspirin and found a small digital camera with dozens of memory cards in a plastic bag. My hands were shaking as I turned on the camera and scrolled through the photos. Image after image of different women, all taken in the same apartment, all from Halloween nights over the past several years. Different faces, different costumes, but all the same pose. Sitting on Tyler's couch with the same wine glass, wearing the same relaxed smile I'd probably had on my face 20 minutes earlier. In the bedroom, I found a closet full of women's costumes in various sizes. Not 1 or 2 outfits from girlfriends, but dozens of costumes organized by size and style like inventory. On his nightstand was a notebook filled with handwritten entries, each dated from a different Halloween. Sarah, 2019, nurse costume, size 6, responded well to wine, left at 3 a.m. Michelle, 2020, cat costume, size 8, required additional persuasion, disposed of costume. Jennifer, 2021, witch costume, size 4, uncooperative, problem resolved. My entry was already started. Ashley, 2022, vampire costume, size 6, responding well to wine. I grabbed my phone to call an Uber, but the screen was black and wouldn't turn on. When I tried Tyler's landline, there was no dial tone. "Ashley?" Tyler's voice came from the living room. "Everything okay in there?" "Just a minute," I called back, trying to keep my voice steady while looking for another way out. The bathroom window was too small, and we were on the 4th floor anyway. The bedroom window had the same problem. When I came back to the living room, Tyler was refilling my wine glass. "You were gone a while," he said, handing me the glass. I was starting to worry. "Actually, I should probably head home, early day tomorrow." Tyler's smile faltered slightly. "But it's Halloween night. The night's still young. I really need to go. Ashley, sit down. Have some wine. Let's talk about this." Something in his tone had changed. The charming guy from the party was gone, replaced by someone more controlling, more insistent. "My roommate is expecting me home," I lied. "No, she isn't. You told me she was staying at her boyfriend's place tonight. You said you had the whole weekend free." He was right. I had told him that back when I trusted him, back when this felt like a romantic connection instead of a trap. "The door is locked," Tyler said casually. 3 deadbolts, all controlled by a keypad I installed myself. Very secure. I looked toward the front door and saw what I'd missed when we came in. Multiple locks, including a digital keypad with a red light indicating armed status. "What do you want?" I asked. "I want you to relax and enjoy yourself. Halloween only comes once a year, and I always like to make it special." He pulled out his phone and showed me a video of myself from earlier in the evening, clearly taken from a hidden camera in the bathroom. "I've been recording our entire date," he said. "Amazing how people behave when they think they're in private. You're going to be a wonderful addition to my collection." That's when I noticed the camera mounted discreetly in the corner of the living room, its red recording light barely visible in the dim lighting. "Here's how this works," Tyler continued. "You can cooperate and make this easy for both of us, or you can fight and make it much more difficult for yourself. Either way, you're staying until I decide you can leave." I threw the wine glass at his face and ran for the kitchen while he cursed and wiped blood from his cheek. In the kitchen drawers, I found a carving knife and my phone, which had been charging on his counter. The screen showed 17 missed calls from my roommate. Tyler appeared in the kitchen doorway, no longer bothering to maintain his charming facade. "That was stupid, Ashley. Now I have to do this the hard way." He pulled out a small device that looked like a TV remote and pressed a button. All the lights in the apartment went out, leaving us in complete darkness. But I still had my phone. I turned on the flashlight and dialed 911 while keeping the knife pointed toward where Tyler had been standing. 911, what's your emergency?" "I'm trapped in an apartment by someone who's been drugging and recording women. He has photos of other victims, and I think some of them are dead." I gave them the address while moving toward what I hoped was a window. Tyler's voice came from somewhere in the darkness. "Even if they come, Ashley, how are they going to get through 3 deadbolts and a reinforced door? I've had years to perfect this system." But Tyler had made one mistake. The building's fire code required bedroom windows to open for emergency exit, and his expensive apartment was still subject to city safety regulations. I smashed the bedroom window with a chair and screamed for help until neighbors in the building across the courtyard started turning on lights and calling back. Police arrived 12 minutes later, but it took them another 20 minutes to break through Tyler's security system. By then, I was safely in the building across the courtyard, wrapped in a neighbor's robe, giving my statement to detectives. They found everything in Tyler's apartment: 5 years' worth of recordings, personal items from dozens of women, and detailed notes about victims who had required problem resolution. Tyler was gone. He'd used the confusion of the police response to escape through the building's basement parking garage, leaving behind everything except his car keys and wallet. 3 bodies were found buried in storage units he'd rented around the city. Women who matched the descriptions in his notebook, women who had trusted him enough to leave parties with him on Halloween nights just like I had. They never caught him. Every Halloween, police get reports of charming men at parties who match Tyler's description, but he's apparently changed his appearance and methods. I don't go to Halloween parties anymore. I don't trust strangers who seem too perfect, too interested, too eager to get me somewhere private. Because I learned that the most dangerous predators don't look like monsters. They look like exactly what you're hoping to find. Someone charming, someone attractive, someone who makes you feel special enough to ignore your instincts. Halloween is supposed to be about pretending to be someone else for one night. But some people use that permission to reveal who they really are underneath their everyday masks. And sometimes the scariest realization is how close you came to becoming just another trophy in someone's twisted collection. Another entry in a notebook full of women who trusted the wrong vampire. Tonight's 4 stories remind us that Halloween's most terrifying moments don't come from fictional monsters, but from the real people who use the holiday's atmosphere of trust and celebration to prey on the innocent. From Emma's babysitting nightmare to Marcus's office party horror, from Katie's trapped neighborhood to Ashley's dangerous hookup, each story proves that the masks we should fear most are the ones people wear every day. This Halloween, trust your instincts, question perfection, and remember that sometimes the most dangerous invitations come from people who seem exactly like what you're looking for. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you next time on Grave Hush, where the darkness meets reality.